What's a parent's worst nightmare? I think for most of us, it's losing a child. A sudden, tragic accident that, in a single moment, just tears your world apart. But what if, somehow, it could get worse? What if in the hours right after your child's death, while you're still just suffocating in shock and grief, you become the prime suspect? What if the very people who are supposed to help you, instead they corner you, they break you, and they manipulate you into saying you did it? This isn't a hypothetical scenario. This is the real story of Melissa Lucio. And it's a story about how 7 small words, "I guess I did it," can put an innocent mother on death row. So let's go back to February 2007 in Texas. Melissa Lucio, a mother of 12, was in the middle of a really stressful family move. Her 2-year-old daughter, Mariah, who had a mild physical disability that made her a bit unsteady on her feet, well, she took a frightening tumble down a steep flight of stairs. And after the initial scare and, the tears, she actually seemed to be okay. 2 days later, Melissa put Mariah down for a nap, and she never woke up. When the paramedics arrived, they saw a little girl's body covered in bruises and immediately suspected the worst: child abuse. And from that moment on, Melissa Lucio was no longer seen as a grieving mother. In their eyes, she was a monster. She was a murder suspect. Just hours after losing her daughter, the interrogation began. Intense for 5 straight hours, detectives relentlessly hammered her. They yelled, they showed her autopsy photos of her child's body. They refused to believe her story about the fall. I want you to really think about that. You've just lost your child. You are exhausted. You are in shock. And for 5 hours, you are aggressively accused of being the one who killed her. Melissa asserted her innocence over and over and over again. By some counts, more than 100 times. But they wouldn't stop. They made it clear the interrogation would not end until she told them what they wanted to hear. And finally, she broke. Exhausted, manipulated, and psychologically broken down, she relented. She looked at the officers and uttered the 7 words that would seal her fate. "I guess I did it." That was it. That was all they needed. That vague, cryptic, and utterly exhausted phrase became the entire cornerstone of the state's case against her. Melissa Lucio was charged with capital murder. But here's where a devastating family tragedy just curdles into a systemic nightmare. The jury that convicted her, they never heard the full story. They were never told by an expert that Melissa, a lifelong survivor of horrific sexual abuse and domestic violence, was psychologically conditioned to defer to aggressive male authority figures, that her entire life had taught her to accept blame just to make the pressure stop. They never heard that her so-called confession had all the classic textbook hallmarks of a coerced false confession. And get this, the lead prosecutor in her case, a man named Armando Villalobos, was later convicted himself for bribery and extortion in a series of other cases. His name is now literally synonymous with corruption. And it gets even worse. The prosecution put a Texas Ranger on the stand who claimed he was an expert in reading body language. He told the jury with absolute confidence that he could tell from Melissa's slumped posture and her lack of eye contact that she was guilty. This kind of testimony is, by today's standards, rightly dismissed as junk science. You cannot see guilt on someone's face, especially not on the face of a traumatized woman who is grieving the loss of her child. So, the jury convicted her, and they sentenced her to die. For 17 years, Melissa Lucio has sat on death row. 17 years for a crime that never even happened. But her story wasn't over. Groups like the Innocence Project took up her cause. A surprising coalition of bipartisan Texas lawmakers, faith leaders, and even other death row exonerees began to speak out. And then, in April 2022, just 2 days before she was scheduled to be executed, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals issued a stay, a glimmer of hope. And then, something truly remarkable happened. In 2024, the very same judge who presided over her original trial, Judge Arturo Nelson, he reviewed all the new evidence. He saw the suppressed medical report showing Mariah's injuries were indeed consistent with a fall. He read the expert analysis of her false confession, and he did something almost unheard of. He officially declared that Melissa Lucio is actually innocent. He has recommended her conviction be overturned entirely. The case is now pending with a higher court, which holds the final key to her freedom. 17 years.
lost. All because a grieving, vulnerable woman was pushed past her breaking point, and the system that was supposed to find the truth instead manufactured a lie. It failed to protect her. Instead, it built a death sentence on 7 broken words. Now, here's a question we'd like you to think about. When the power is so imbalanced, when a person's will can be so completely bent by pressure and authority, how can we ever be sure that a confession is a reflection of guilt and not just a reflection of surrender?